Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today inshallah we will discuss another topic, that is sacrum. The sacrum is a large flattened triangular bone. See here in this diagram, this is a triangular bone which is formed by the fusion of first 5 sacral vertebra. This is S1, then S2, S3, S4 and S5. These vertebra, they will fuse together to form one triangular bone that is named as sacrum. It forms the posterior superior part of the bony pelvis. See here, this is bony pelvis and this is the posterior superior part of the bony pelvis, articulating on either side with the corresponding hip bone at the sacroiliac joint. This is sacroiliac joint. The upper part of the sacrum is very massive because it supports the body weight and transmits the body weight to the hip bone. The lower part is free from the weight and therefore it tapers rapidly. This is the sacrum. This is a triangular bone. It is forming the posterior superior part of the bony pelvis, and this is the area where it articulates with the hip bone. This is forming the sacroiliac joint. There is one auricular surface on the hip bone. This is the auricular surface with which the sacrum articulates. Being triangular, the sacrum has a base. This is the base, which is also called as the upper surface. This is the apex or the lower end of the sacrum, and there are 4 surfaces of the sacrum. This is the pelvic surface. This is the dorsal surface. This will be the right lateral surface, and this is the left lateral surface. The pelvic surface is very smooth and concave. The dorsal surface is irregular and convex. The lateral surfaces, they are irregular and they are partly articular because they will articulate to form the sacroiliac joint. The sacrum is divided by the rows of foramina into a median portion. See here, this is the median portion and this one is the lateral portion, and they are traversed by these foramina. The median portion is traversed by one sacral canal. There will be one sacral canal which is inside the median portion, and there are pair of lateral masses which are formed by the fusion of the transverse processes posteriorly and the costal elements anteriorly. These are the costal elements which are fused together anteriorly, and these are the transverse processes which are fused together posteriorly. These costal elements which are fused anteriorly and the transverse processes which are fused posteriorly, they are fused together to form these lateral masses. These lateral masses are lateral to the foramina, and the medial portion is medial to the foramina. In the median portion, there is one sacral canal. Now, what is the anatomical position of the sacrum? When sacrum is placed in the anatomical position, the pelvic surface is facing downwards and forwards. The upper surface of the body of the first sacral vertebra, it slopes forward at an angle of about 30 degrees with the horizontal. See here, this is the upper surface of the base of the sacrum, or the upper surface of the sacrum, or the first sacral vertebra. It is forming 30 degrees angle with the horizontal. This is the normal anatomical position. Now, what are the features? Number 1, we will discuss the base. This is the base or the upper surface. The base is directed upwards and forwards. It is formed by the upper surface of the first sacral vertebra. The body is lumbar in shape. This body will be lumbar in shape. It articulates with the lumbar vertebra 5 at the lumbosacral joint. It will form one joint which is named as lumbosacral joint. The projecting anterior margin of the first sacral vertebra is named as sacral promontory. The surface slopes forward at an angle of 30 degrees with the horizontal. The vertebral foramina lies behind the body of the sacrum and leads into the sacral canal. See here, this is the body of the first sacral vertebra, and this is the vertebral foramen which is leading into the sacral canal. It is triangular in shape. The pedicles are short and they are directed backwards and laterally. Here also you can see the sacral canal. The lamina are oblique. The spine forms the first spinous tubercle. See here, this is the first spinous tubercle. The superior articular processes projects upward. Okay, there are the superior articular processes which are projecting upward. These are superior articular processes. The facets on them are directed backwards and medially. The transverse processes are highly modified. Each process is massive and fused with the corresponding costal element. See here, this is the costal element and this is the transverse process. They are fused together to form the upper part of the lateral mass of the sacrum. This is the lateral mass of the first sacral vertebra. So this is the base or the upper surface of the first sacral vertebra. This is the first spinous tubercle. These are two superior articular processes with the facets. These are the lateral masses which are formed by the fusion of the costal elements anteriorly and the transverse processes posteriorly. The base of the lateral mass forms a broad sloping surface spreading fan-wise. See here, this is the broad sloping surface which is spreading fan-wise from the side of the body. It is named as ala of the sacrum. This lateral mass or the lateral mass of the first sacral vertebra is named as ala of the sacrum. Ala means wing. The ala is subdivided into a smooth medial part. This is the smooth medial part and a rough lateral part. The apex of the sacrum is formed by the fusion or formed by the inferior surface of the body of the fifth sacral vertebra. This is the fifth sacral vertebra and this is the inferior surface of the fifth sacral vertebra. It bears an oval facet for the articulation with the coccyx. So here it articulates with the coccyx to form the sacrococcygeal joint. This is sacrococcygeal joint. Now we will discuss the pelvic surface. See here, this pelvic surface, it is concave. It is directed forwards and downwards. The median area is marked by 4 transverse ridges. These are the 4 transverse ridges which indicate the line of fusion of the body of 5 sacral vertebra. This is S1, this is S2, S3, S4 and S5. These ridges end on either side at 4 pelvic sacral foramina. These are the 4 pelvic sacral foramina on the right side and these are the 4 pelvic sacral foramina on the left side. These foramina, they are communicating with the sacral canal through intervertebral foramina. There are intervertebral foramina through which these pelvic sacral foramina, they will continue with the sacral canal. The body parts between the foramina represent the costal element. These are the costal elements. See here, these are the costal elements. Lateral to the foramina, see here, this is lateral to the foramina. These costal elements, they will fuse with the transverse processes to form the lateral mass of the sacrum. This is the lateral mass of sacrum. Now we will discuss the dorsal surface. The dorsal surface of the sacrum is very rough. It is very irregular and it is convex and it is directed backwards and upwards. In the median plane, it is marked by median sacral crest. See here, this is median sacral crest which bears 3 to 4 spinous tubercles representing the fused spines of the upper 4 sacral vertebra. This is the first spinous tubercle, then there will be the second spinous tubercle and the third spinous tubercle, and there can be fourth spinous tubercle also. They represent the fused spinous processes of upper 4 sacral vertebra. Below the fourth tubercle, there is an inverted U-shaped gap in the posterior wall of the sacral canal. This gap is named as sacral hiatus. It results from the failure of the fusion of the lamina of the fifth sacral vertebra. The fifth sacral vertebra lamina will not fuse posteriorly and it will show one gap which is named as sacral hiatus. Lateral to the median crest, see here, this is the median sacral crest. Lateral to the median sacral crest, the posterior surface is formed by the fused lamina. These are the fused lamina of the upper 4 sacral vertebra, and the lamina of the fifth sacral vertebra, they will not fuse together and they will form one gap which is named as sacral hiatus. Now lateral to the lamina, there are 4 First of all, there will be tubercles. There are 4 tubercles which are present here, or you can say there are processes which are by the fusion of the superior articular processes. Okay, first of all, there will be superior articular process of the first sacral vertebra which is not fused, and below that process there are 4 articular tubercles representing the 4 articular processes of the adjacent vertebra. Here there will be 4 articular tubercles. See here, these are the 4 articular tubercles which are showing the fusion of the superior and the inferior articular processes of the sacral vertebra. Only the superior articular process of the first sacral vertebra and the inferior articular process of the fifth sacral vertebra, they will not fuse together. Otherwise, all inferior of the first one and the superior and inferior of the second, third and fourth, and the superior articular process of the fifth sacral vertebra, they will fuse together to form one crest which is named as intermediate sacral crest. This will be intermediate sacral crest. Okay, the inferior articular process of the fifth sacral vertebra is free and it forms the sacral cornu. This is named as sacral cornu, which projects downward at the sides of the sacral hiatus. This is sacral hiatus and these are 2 sacral cornu. So again I will repeat, only the superior articular processes, they are present, they are not fused, they are having the facets also, they are named as sacral horns or the first sacral processes. Then the inferior articular process of the first sacral vertebra, the second sacral vertebra's both processes, superior and inferior articular process, then superior and inferior articular process of the third sacral vertebra and the fourth sacral vertebra, and only the superior articular process of the fifth sacral vertebra, they will fuse together to form this intermediate crest. And the inferior articular processes of the fifth sacral vertebra, they are free and they will form the sacral cornu. These sacral cornu are on the lateral boundary of the sacral hiatus. Now, lateral to these articular tubercles, there are 4 dorsal sacral foramina. These are the 4 dorsal sacral foramina of the left side, and these are the 4 dorsal sacral foramina of the right side. They communicate with the sacral canal through the intervertebral foramen. From this diagram, it is very understandable that the pelvic sacral foramina and the dorsal sacral foramina, they are communicated with one another through the intervertebral foramen, and through these intervertebral foramen, the pelvic sacral foramina and the dorsal sacral foramina, they are communicated with the sacral canal. Lateral to these foramina, there is the lateral sacral crest. See here, this is the lateral sacral crest which is formed by the fusion of the transverse processes. They are the transverse tubercles. Okay, they are representing the fused transverse processes. So there are 3 sacral crests. Number 1 is the median sacral crest, number 2 is the intermediate sacral crest, and number 3 is the lateral sacral crest. Now we will discuss the lateral surface of the sacrum. It is formed by the fusion of the transverse processes and the costal elements of the sacral vertebra. It is wide above and narrow below. The upper wide part bears an L-shaped auricular surface anteriorly and a rough, deeply pitted area posteriorly. See here, this is the smooth anterior surface which is L-shaped. It is the articular surface, or it is also named as auricular surface, because it is shaped just like an auricle, and this is the pitted posterior part. The auricular surface is formed by the fusion of the costal elements. It articulates with the auricular surface of the hip bone to form the sacroiliac joint. The posterior roughened part and the pitted area, it is formed by the fusion of the transverse processes. The abrupt medial bend, see here, there is an abrupt medial bend at the lower end of the lateral surface, and this is named as the inferior lateral angle of the sacrum, because here you can see that the sacrum will be bent forward, and this angle is named as inferior lateral angle of the sacrum. Now the sacral canal, it is formed by the sacral vertebral foramina and it is triangular on cross section. Inferiorly, the canal opens at the sacral hiatus and laterally it communicates with the intervertebral foramina with the pelvic sacral foramina. These are the pelvic sacral foramina and these are the dorsal sacral foramina. The sacral canal contains the spinal meninges, the filum terminale and the subdural and the subarachnoid spaces and at the level of the second sacral vertebra. This thing is very important, as we know that there is no spinal cord in the sacrum because the spinal cord has finished up till the level of L1. Here in the sacrum there are only the spinal meninges and there is the filum terminale. Okay, and there are the lower sacral nerves and the filum terminale, the pairs, the dura mater and the arachnoid mater up till the level of S2. So see here, this is the level of S2, the filum terminale and the dura mater and the pia mater, they are only present up till the level of S2. The filum terminale will be a cord of fibrous tissue which will be attached to the coccyx, which is the modification of the pia mater. This is filum terminale. This filum terminale, it will be present up till the coccyx. Attachment on the sacrum. The anterior and the posterior edges of the body of the first sacral vertebra, they will give attachment to the anterior longitudinal ligament. See here, this is the anterior longitudinal ligament and here there will be the posterior longitudinal ligament which will be attached to the posterior part of the body of the sacrum. So this is the anterior longitudinal ligament. The lamina of this vertebra provides attachment to the lower pair of the ligamentum flavum. Here there will be ligamentum flavum which is attached for the erection of the spine. Now we will discuss the ala. This is the ala or the wing of the sacrum. The rough part of the ala gives origin to the iliacus muscle. See here, as we know that the ala of the sacrum has a smooth anterior part and a rough posterior part. So this is the rough posterior part which shows the attachment to the iliacus muscle and attachment to the lumbosacral ligament which will be posterior to the iliacus. The upper part of the ventral sacroiliac ligament is attached to its margin. See here, the ventral sacroiliac ligament is attached to its margin. So there are three structures which are present or attached to the ala. Number one is the iliacus muscle. Number two is the ventral sacroiliac ligament. And there is the lumbosacral ligament which is present posteriorly. Now the part of the pelvic surface which is lateral to the bodies of the middle three pieces of the sacrum, they are giving origin to the piriformis muscle. This is the piriformis muscle. This is inverted E-shaped muscle which is attached here. The area extends into the interval between the pelvic sacral foramina and it is E-shaped. This is piriformis. So up till now we have discussed two muscles. This is iliacus and this is the piriformis muscle. Now the dorsal surface. On the dorsal surface we can see two muscles which are originating from the dorsal surface of the sacrum. Number one is the erector spinae muscle. This is erector spinae muscle which is attached in the form of U, or it is a U-shaped line passing over the spinous processes and the transverse tubercles. See here, these are the spinous processes and these are the transverse tubercles, and this erector spinae is attached to the spinous processes and the transverse tubercles. The area which is inside the concavity of this U, it gives origin to the multifidus muscle. Here also you can see that here there will be the multifidus muscle, and around this multifidus muscle there will be erector spinae muscle. This multifidus muscle is overlapping the dorsal sacral foramina, and the dorsal rami of the sacral spinal nerves will penetrate this multifidus muscle. Now there is the interosseous sacroiliac ligament which is attached to the rough pitted area of the lateral surface behind the auricular surface. This is the auricular surface or the articular surface for the sacroiliac joint, and here the interosseous sacroiliac ligament is attached. The lower narrow part, see here, this is the lower narrow part of the lateral surface below the auricular surface. It is giving origin to the four structures. What are they? Number one, it is giving origin to the gluteus gluteus maximus muscle. Here the sacrotuberous ligament is attached. Then there is the sacrospinous ligament which is attached, and then there is the origin of the coccygeus muscle. It is in order from behind forward. See here, the first structure which is behind is gluteus maximus muscle. Then the sacrotuberous ligament which is attached here. Then the sacrospinous ligament which is attached here. And then the coccygeus muscle which is present on the lower part of the sacrum. The inferior lateral angle gave attachment to the lateral sacrococcygeal ligament also. Now some relations of the sacrum. The smooth part of the ala, see here the rough lateral part of the ala has given attachment to the iliacus muscle, and there was the lumbosacral ligament, and there was the ventral sacroiliac ligament which was attached to its margins. Now we have to discuss that what are the structures which are related to the smooth anterior part of the ala of the sacrum. There are four structures which we have to remember. Number one is the sympathetic chain which is present medially. Then there is the lumbosacral trunk which is present lateral to the sympathetic chain. Then there is the iliolumbar artery which is present, and then there is the obturator nerve which is present on the lateral side of the ala of the sacrum. That is, from medial to lateral side, number one is sympathetic chain, number two is the lumbosacral trunk, number 3 is the iliolumbar artery, and number 4 is the obturator nerve. All these structures are overlapped by the psoas major muscle. The pelvic surface is related with the median sacral artery in the median plane and the sympathetic trunk which is overlapping the pelvic sacral foramina. See here, this is the median sacral artery, this is the sympathetic trunk, then there is the lumbosacral trunk, then there is the iliolumbar artery and the obturator nerve. Now the structures which are passing through the pelvic sacral foramina are the ventral rami. See here, this is the ventral rami or the anterior rami of the upper four sacral nerve. This is S1 and S2, S3 and S4. And there are the lateral sacral arteries which are coming out from the pelvic sacral foramina. The dorsal sacral foramina, they are transmitting the dorsal rami of the upper four sacral nerves. Okay, what are the structures which are emerging out from the sacral hiatus? It is the fifth sacral nerve which grooves the lateral part of the fifth sacral vertebra and a pair of the coccygeal nerves and the filum terminale. Filum terminale is a fibrous tissue which is connecting the lower part of these, you can say lower part of the spinal nerves to the coccyx. This is the modification of the pia mater. It is non-neural tissue. There is no nervous tissue present in the filum terminale. Filum terminale is only a fibrous tissue which is attached to the coccygeal nerves to the coccyx, or sacral nerves to the coccyx. Now, how can we differentiate between the male sacrum and the female sacrum? There is one index which we can calculate. This is named as Sacral Index. There is one formula to calculate the sacral index. First of all, we have to measure the breadth of the sacrum along the base. This is the breadth across the base. See here, from one ala of the sacrum, from one ala of the sacrum to the other ala, that is the right ala to the left ala, we will measure the breadth of the sacrum. Then the length of the sacrum from the promontory, this is the sacral promontory, to the apex, this is the maximum length. So what we will do, we will put the breadth above and the length below and multiply by 100. This is the sacral index. The male sacrum, they are longer and narrower than in the female. The average sacral index is about 105 in males and about 115 in females.